Welcome to 5 Good Questions. I'm your host, Jake Taylor. Our guest today is Brent Beshore. Brent is the founder and CEO of adventur.es, a family of companies that invests in family-owned companies. He also sits on the Tandy Leather Board of Directors and is active in Love Inc., a Missouri-based nonprofit. Brent lives in Columbia, Missouri with his wife and 3 daughters. Today we're going to be discussing his book, The Messy Marketplace, Selling Your Business in a World of Imperfect Buyers. Let's ask Brent 5 good questions. But first, I'm happy to announce my literary debut, The Rebel Allocator, is now available on Amazon in both print and digital formats. You could say it's about time. I've been pouring my heart into this book for more than 3 years. A well-known SoCal billionaire received an early copy of the book and actually called me to say he enjoyed the story and was adamant that I get it made into a movie. Talk about a surreal experience getting 20 minutes on the phone with one of my heroes. My friend Tobias Carlisle had this to say: Jacob Taylor has written a modern-day investment classic. The Rebel Allocator is reminiscences of a stock operator for value investors. It's a fictionalized retelling of the lessons in The Intelligent Investor in an accessible page-turner. If you want to learn how to invest like Warren Buffett by sitting at his knee, this is the book for you. Wow, how flattering is that? I was blown away when he sent me that. I've created dozens of ad-free author interviews over the last 5 years and never asked for anything in return. If you've gotten any value out of these efforts, please do me a personal favor and pick up a copy of The Rebel Allocator. I promise you won't regret it. And now, on with the show. All right, welcome back to the program, everybody. My guest today is Brent Beshore, author of The Messy Marketplace. Hey, Brent, thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Hey, really appreciate you having me on.
So let's just jump right in. Question number one. There's a tremendous amount of information that needs to be sorted through before a buyer might be able to get comfortable with purchasing an entire business. What percentage of the information out there do you shoot for before making that final decision?
Well, I would say it depends on, there's a lot of small decisions along the way. And what we try to do is pair the amount of information to the kind of the stage of decision. I mean, ultimately, you're never going to have perfect information. Even if you diligenced a company for 10 years, you'll still have blind spots. But what we try to do is try to understand, well, what are the controlling factors that will really determine if you get those things right, the investment's probably very high likelihood to go well. If you get those things wrong, it's going to be tough to have it go well under sort of almost any circumstances. Mm-hmm. Really try to diligence those things, and that comes in stages. I mean, the first thing we want to do with the seller is really just understand, why are they selling? What's the situation? And would we even be eligible to be a good partner to them? We want to create a win-win relationship with them. And the only way to understand if you can create that win-win relationship is to get to know them.
Right. So you end up spending a lot of the due diligence is the people factor.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The numbers are what they are. I mean, we certainly diligence, everything from their customer profiles to contracts to their accounting systems, backgrounds, things like that. But what I would say is that the vast majority of it that you can't really get on paper is who the people are, their personalities. We're all messy, hence the name of the book, The Messy Marketplace. And we try to understand that messiness, and we want them to get to understand our messiness as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So question number 2, like any investment, you're often end up having to pay up for quality in a business. So what's your thought process as you balance maybe the quality of the business versus your purchase price?
Oh, great question. Yeah, I mean, every deal has to be evaluated in light of the purchase price. And what I would say is that we're paying sort of average market multiples in the segment that we're in, and really trying to find those diamonds in the rough, what we would say is higher quality, but the quality is so dependent upon who buys the company.
Right.
It's not always the same. And so what we're looking for is opportunities to partner with great leadership teams that are excited about the future on a business that maybe has stayed small for good reasons for the previous seller, but that we can change some of those underlying factors to allow the company to prosper. So, one of the things we like to say is small businesses don't stay small on purpose. And we try to understand, well, why are they small? And maybe can we help mitigate some of those reasons?
What do you think that how's your batting average been so far as maybe like adding some, adding value over and above, like in maybe structural ways by just being a part of your portfolio?
Well, I would hope that every investment that we make, we're able to add value. I mean, we underwrite the opportunities, assuming we don't add value. We definitely want to believe very few things have to be true for the investment to work out. But at the same time, we do have an incredibly skilled team. There's 13 of us at the adventures level and lots of experience in a variety of different ways. And so we get involved in everything from the financing risks and costs to marketing, lead generation. I mean, every business needs more sales.
Right.
And when I say get involved, I mean, we're offering things that we've seen that worked over the years. Maybe they will work in this situation, maybe they won't. And just another, when we try to be a thoughtful voice at the table to offer direction, but we're never coming in and what I would say just changing things. It's always in partnership with the leadership team that's in place.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun, actually, as a job.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I think I have the best job in the world. I mean, I wake up every day and amazed that I get paid to. I mean, for me, just have a blast.
Yeah. So, question number 3: how do you? And this is a subject that I've been obsessed with for about 5 years now, but I just was dying to hear your take on it. But how do you assess the capital allocation skills in a small business context, especially?
It's really challenging. I mean, ultimately, you can look at the amount of total capital invested in the company over a period of time and get to some base return on invested capital, if you want to time weight it on an IRR basis. But ultimately, it's about asking questions and getting to know the people. We like to discuss very early on in the process. Give me your most recent big decision you've made. More specifically, big investment decision you've made. How did you make that decision? Who was involved in it? What were the competing interests? How did you think about it in general? And you can usually gauge pretty quickly how tuned in the person is to the ways they make decisions. And some people are very analytical, numbers driven. Other people are much more gut feel, which is really just another way of saying they're pinging, 1,000 different things that they've learned over the years and sort of triangulating to a response. But it's something we definitely look at. And I would say that's another area that we try to come in and add another thoughtful perspective to the table.
Yeah, I imagine that might be one of the areas that has the most potential, at least from what I've seen with a lot of other small businesses where it's just there's no training manual for that, really.
No, I mean, no one talks about their return on invested capital, how they make investment allocation decisions, because it's a very private thing, right? You're not going to banter about it. And plus, it's a pretty heavy subject. So really, the only way you learn about it is by doing it and probably making a lot of mistakes along the way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's an expensive education.
It is an expensive education. Something we've paid plenty of tuition in that department.
Yeah. So question number 4, what's the most preventable deal breaker that you see sellers making on a regular basis?
Yeah, great question. I would say the most common is just not having sellers understand what they want out of a deal. I mean, having willing sellers is the number one ingredient in creating a deal. Like if we're on the buying side, we got to have a counterparty on the selling side. And too often we either have owners that disagree about what they want, or even one owner who just really doesn't understand what they're really going after. And so it's, you get sort of a overreaction and underreaction as the result of that, and ends up clouding the whole process.
How about on the buyer side? Where do you see the biggest stubbing their toe that's preventable?
Yeah, I would say losing trust through the process is probably the most common. I mean, look, on both the buyer and the seller side, there's plenty of opportunities to cut corners and to take a little bit more, nibble away at the edges. And, it erodes trust. And we see that happen, far too often. And, obviously it's kind of like the get to know you, dating, engagement, marriage kind of phases, right?
Yeah.
That you go through. I mean, diligence, when, you're under due diligence under letter of intent, it's really the engagement period. And typically things don't get easier once you get married if you've got problems in the engagement.
Yeah, that's true. So question number 5, and this is always try to have a little fun with this one, but so after analyzing more than 10,000 deals now, what's been the craziest clause that you've ever seen in a contract?
We one time had a contract put in front of us that the lawyer had worked in a requirement that the company would always have to use the lawyer after closing. And we were like, what in the world? Wait a minute, why would we agree to that? And they were like, well, we figured you want to use this as your attorney. It was not our attorney, it was the counterparty attorney. We were like, wait a minute, we're not gonna agree to use the hostile counsel, opposing counsel in perpetuity on a business we're gonna buy a majority of. Like, how would that work? And they were like, oh, fine, well, I guess we can strike it. It was a very strange situation.
That's pretty presumptuous of them.
Yeah, well, I think they were trying to protect some fee income, is what I would expect.
Yeah, no doubt. So, bonus question we always ask, and this is for a book recommendation, and typically we're looking for something that's either off the beaten path or maybe you feel like is underrepresented or underrated.
I've got to go back to just an all-time favorite of mine and say The Fish That Ate the Whale. It's a story of a gentleman by the last name of Zamuri who is the reason why we have the phrase Banana Republic. Got intervened in multiple Middle and South American countries, really forever changed the course of human history in a number of ways, and started off with nothing and built an empire, and didn't always build an empire ethically, but man, it reads like fiction, but it's a biography, and those are the things I just love, is biographies that read like fiction. I mean, what more can you want?
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. That one is a real page turner. It's like surprising, all the twists and turns in it.
Yeah, I mean, you keep reading it and you just can't believe that you're like, wait a minute, what else could he possibly be involved in? And you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Brent, thanks for coming on the show. And I think, I love the book. I made a little tweet. I don't do a lot of tweeting, but I said that it was one of those things where, like, to be able to pay so little money to have an expert who's got so many hours dedicated to the study of this to be able to walk you through it was just like invaluable. So I appreciate you creating so much dense information. I mean that in a good way, packed into so few pages.
Sure. I really appreciate it. I mean, yeah, we try to take thousands of hours of conversations and all the things we've learned over a decade of doing what we do and really pack it in. I mean, we joke that the world is full of 300-page books that basically take one good idea and flog the hell out of it. Yeah. And I think that we've tried to do the exact opposite and make it really condensed down and meaty as opposed to telling a lot of stories.
Yeah, exactly. Those are exactly the kind of books that I like. So it was perfect.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you.
Before you go, do me the huge honor of picking up your copy of the Rebel Allocator, available on Amazon in both print and digital formats. It's a business person's guide to effective capital allocation, told in a coming-of-age story of a college grad who crosses paths with a wealthy Midwesterner. It's fiction for the nonfiction reader. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you'd like to support this author and purchase their book, click here. If you'd like to become a subscriber to 5GQ, click here. And I included a couple other interviews that you might appreciate right here. Thanks, happy reading.